Well, good morning, everybody. Happy weekend. I hope you all had a great Christmas, and I'm glad you're tuning in. You're listening to a special best of episode of the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show. I hope you enjoy it. Well, Hailey, this time of year, one of the things that really comes out, especially in our little studio here, and you're going to get to experience it. I guess you experienced it last year.
It a little bit, yeah.
The air gets so dry, and static becomes a major issue. Every time I hop off my little chair, I get almost
what an image. Every time I hop off my little chair.
I should explain. I have a great big tall raised chair.
Yes, it's a high chair.
Yeah, it's not like a normal chair. Right.
Oh,
no wonder people, when they meet me, say, well, you're not quite as short as we thought. It's because of my own problem. I paint a bad picture. Anyway, when I hop off of my super tall raised chair and touch anything metal, I get a debilitating static shock.
Yeah, you're pretty dramatic about it.
Yes, we were laughing about that the other day, and you talked about you have the same problem at home.
Yeah, my hair gets staticky, my cat gets staticky, Burger's getting charged up every time I pet him. Poor cat's getting trained not to get pet now because he's getting shocked every time. But yeah, it's just super dry, and obviously humidifiers help a lot with that, but the clothes in the dryer, I think I've got a fix for, because when I pull clothes out of the dryer right now, they're stuck together. You know?
Right.
You can peel them apart and hear the crackle.
Do it in the dark. It's like a light show.
Oh yeah,
it's actually pretty cool. But it is a pain in the neck, and you've got a fix for it.
I do.
And I was kind of intrigued because it's something that I use, but I'm not using them correctly. Nor am I understanding why I'm using them. I found I've got the right tools. I just don't understand them at all. So dryer balls.
Yes, the wool dryer balls is what we're talking about. And they're basically just wool tightly compacted in a ball form, and you throw them in the dryer. 7, I think, is typical for a regular load of laundry.
And that's my first mistake.
Okay.
I bought them in packs of 3, and I have 3.
Okay.
So I use 3 or 2 or 1, depending on if I found them.
Yeah, the one's not going to do much.
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was doing amazing things, but maybe not. It needs friends.
I could never imagine what they would do. I've seen these in the stores for years and never understood why I would throw a wool ball into the dryer. I already have wool clothes in there.
Yeah, lots of us don't know why we do it.
Why?
But you figured it out.
I did. I did
enlighten us all.
some research, and I figured out what they actually do. And the first thing is that they reduce the dry time. So that right off the bat is going to help reduce some of the static because they're spending less time in the dryer. But they do that because you're adding, 7 balls into the dryer with your clothes. They're getting mixed up with these wet clothes. They're helping to separate them, creating these air pockets, basically. Mm-hmm. And that makes the airflow better inside of the dryer.
All right, so that's my big problem. I don't use enough.
Yes.
If I used more, and to me, that's even bigger benefit than the static reduction is just the reducing the dry time.
Yeah.
Because that's what kills me with laundry is waiting for the dryer.
Forever. Yeah.
The washer goes super lickety-split, but then it piles up waiting for the dryer.
It's true.
So I'm going to get more dryer balls, and that will reduce the dry time.
But that also extends the life of the clothing.
Yeah.
So the less time that they're in that superheated air, the better it is for them. And again, because those dryer balls are reducing the dry time, it actually extends the life of our clothing.
So that's cool.
Really cool.
What other things did they do? Because there's a couple other really cool things yet.
They're reducing the...
Did you hear my voice?
Yeah.
You're not going to even say anything?
I'm not going to say anything.
All right.
We're moving right past that.
Got my little chair, my cracky little voice. Someday I'll be a real boy.
Oh, poor Dan. No, but they reduce the static like we talked about. And they, we said that they reduce the dry time, so that helps. But the other reason they're reducing the static is because that wool is really absorbent. Mm-hmm. They're actually wicking moisture away from the clothes that are in there and holding on to some of that as they're in the dryer throughout the dry time. And that's increasing the humidity inside of the dryer.
They're
and
like
that
little
reduces the static.
Humidifiers.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's how we reduce that's how we reduce the humidity or the static here in a room. That's the concept that's at play in the dryer with these dryer balls. So that's super cool.
The other thing, I mean, they're
like
the list
miracle
goes on
tools.
And on. I know. I can't believe. I mean, now I feel silly for not understanding the magic of the dryer ball because they do so much.
You're a rookie. It's a rookie move.
I guess so. I mean, you're using one, but that's okay.
Well, yeah. It's an advanced dryer ball.
Anyways, the other thing that they do that's really cool is they attract things inside of the dryer.
Like the coins and stuff that we drop in?
I don't.
Not that stuff.
Not that stuff. You've got to deal with that anyway.
Yeah, I do.
But the pet hair, the dander, the human hair, all the stuff we don't want to think about on our clothing, they're pulling it away somehow.
But where does it go? Where do they
It like
go with
attaches to the ball.
So if I
and
would
it
chuck
holds
that
onto
ball
it.
at one of the children just for fun, in a moment of frivolity, I'm smacking them with dander.
Yeah,
That's kind of funny.
that's a little
Do you have
funny.
to wash your dryer balls?
Huh. No, that's a question.
Well, we'll dig into that.
Yeah.
Now, I know there's a smell thing too yet.
Well, yeah. So this is another one of the big benefits, at least for me, because this is always a fight with Jordan. He really loves dryer sheets because they add the fresh scent to the clothes in the dryer. I hate them because my skin is really sensitive. So we've got to find very specific dryer sheets.
Sure.
Or at least I have to find really specific dryer sheets because he won't spend the time to look. And then I've got itchy skin. It's not fun.
So how do these fix that?
You can add essential oils to them. So they're wool, right? We
Yeah.
talked about them being absorbent. You just put a couple drops on there, and then they're releasing a scent that's chemical free.
All right, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll be talking about humidifiers and why you probably should be running one in your home. That's all next. Stick around. You're listening to a special best of episode of the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show, sponsored by Benjamin Moore. Well, Hailey, I don't know if you know this, but Hansen's disease? Leprosy. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah, that's something my dad was very proud to tell us all years back. I remember when I was little and first hearing that we had a disease named after us. A little bummed that it was leprosy.
Wow.
But anyway, I have a reason for that.
Wow.
You're listening to the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show, sponsored by Benjamin Moore, who's always happy to affix their name as a sponsor to our show. Anyway, I'm Dan Hansen.
I'm Hailey Johnson.
And we're here talking about, well, I started talking about Hansen's disease, leprosy. And I have a tongue-in-cheek
terrible.
reason for bringing this up. I thought we had it.
What?
Hilarious, I know. No, bloody noses, chapped lips, all kinds of skin problems. I thought either it's leprosy or maybe we need to get a humidifier. Since I am always calm, cool, and collected in my thinking,
Yeah.
I opted to get the humidifier first, and turns out that's what it was. So breathe a sigh of relief. No, humidifiers, they do a huge service to our homes.
Oh, yeah. I think they're highly underrated. I got a humidifier in my bedroom a couple years ago because I deal with a lot of eczema and dry skin. So does my
Not
husband.
leprosy.
Not leprosy. There's a difference. And yeah, a humidifier has really helped a lot.
Yeah, it licked that problem too. Well, that's probably... Well, figuratively, I guess, in a way.
I mean,
It's almost like saliva. Anyway, if you're not aware and you don't have a humidifier,
Right.
there are some things you should realize that, if you're waking up with a sore, itchy throat every morning,
Dry eyes,
coughing, bloody noses, static. You get out of your chair, you
Right.
slide across the room to change the channel. Nobody does that anymore because we've got remote controls. But if you go off, to get a snack, that's more likely, and you touch the cupboard door and you get a pop,
Yep.
it's probably because the air is too dry.
My cat Burger always gets shocked in the living room because we don't have a humidifier in that room, and we've got big, it's an old house. We've got these giant vents blasting hot air. And every time I get up to pet the cat, he gets a shock during the winter. It's
Does he feel it?
crazy. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
he has to. He's getting trained not to get pet.
Wow, I like that. Anyway, well, I don't like that. I don't endorse that.
No. Don't endorse shocking
No,
cats.
not at all.
Get a humidifier.
Anyway, there's so many things that it will solve or can solve.
Yes.
One of those things is even guitar problems. And that's honestly what got me down this whole trail in the first place, and we'll get to that. But let's talk about a few of the things that humidifiers will help.
Right.
And then I made a purchase, and it's been working out so well, I want to brag about it, but kind of, give you maybe a review, a mini review,
Yeah, I would
a recommendation
say a mini review
about a system that I've got that's working so well. So let's talk about some of the things that humidifiers will do. Here's a really fun one right off the bat. Since we started talking about diseases,
Okay, good.
let's talk about more diseases. Bacteria and viruses cannot travel as well in moist air. So think about
Yeah,
that.
that's very interesting.
Really interesting. There's a study from 2013, and it turns out that increasing humidity levels to 43% or higher will substantially minimize the capability of airborne viruses to cause illness.
Well, I guess that makes sense. I mean, they sell like those Vicks vapor humidifiers when you're sick. You're supposed to like put one of those in your room.
Yeah, I thought it was just to help you breathe, but who knows what exactly it's doing. But for the numbers people, because there are numbers people out there, even on a Saturday morning, they want to know the statistics.
Yes,
give me the stats.
Tell me the numbers, Dan.
Well, I can. So over a span of 60 minutes in this test, that's the time they were running these particular tests, a virus was between 70 and 77% effective in environments of less than 23% humidity.
Oh, wow.
So if the relative humidity in the room was less than 23%, the virus was 70 to 77% effective. Now, in the same rooms, for the same time frame, when the relative humidity was bumped up to 43% or higher, the virus was only between 14 and 22% effective.
Jeez,
so
what a difference.
Huge difference.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, it's all about
Forget washing your hands. Just get a humidifier.
Right. It all spreads in the air,
Joke.
and the yuck can't spread quickly that way.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting.
Yeah. So
I
anyway,
wouldn't have thought it would be such a dramatic difference. 77 to 14.
Exactly.
That's huge.
You heard it here on the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show. And we're believing an article that we read online.
Yes, thank you, Dan.
if we're wrong, that's not my fault. All right, another thing it will do, moisturize dry skin. So before you rush off to the leper doctors,
The leper doctor.
consider
See a dermatologist or something.
Yeah. I don't know how it works anymore. My real only familiarity with leprosy is from Bible stories, so I'm not really sure how it plays out in the modern world. Anyway, dry air sucks all the moisture out of our skin. Just pull it together, Hailey. We're professionals here. And it leads to chapped lips and dry, flaking skin, even premature aging.
Well, that's...
Nobody wants that.
Wow. For the vein.
Yeah, I want to stay young and...
supple.
Shiny.
Yeah.
Supple. My skin is smooth like a baby's bottom. And it's because I've got a humidifier. Humidifiers will help with that. If
well,
you
even
want...
like bloody noses too. Like that's something that I deal with during the winter time is like just breathing through my nose at night and then waking up with...
That's why I mouth breathe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're a
Anyway,
mouth breather?
it's going to help me with that too. You'll sleep better if you've got a humidifier, and you're going to feel better. So if you do sleep with your mouth open, and honestly, I do want to talk about this. I'm not going to get into it now, but I
we'll
ran
have
into
to save that for a
an
different
article about
segment.
taping your mouth shut.
People are doing that, yeah.
Yeah, for sleeping. People have wanted to tape my mouth shut during the waking hours. Nobody suggested that I do that while I'm sleeping. We're going to talk about if that's a good idea or not. Spoiler, it's not. But we'll get to that later. But if you do sleep with your mouth open on accident, it just happens, it can help. And it will not just get you better sleep, but it makes you feel better. Your throat isn't always scratchy all day long. All of that is good. It protects furniture. You know,
I mean, wood getting dried out, it starts cracking, glue comes apart.
And guitars. And that's what got me started on this whole thing. We've got guitars that I've been noticing I'm really struggling to keep them in tune. And stuff like that. I start doing a little digging. I had already known some of this.
Sure.
But, you know, I hadn't dug into it as deeply as I should have.
Well, and you just got a really expensive guitar, so now you care.
For me, it was very expensive. It's not expensive for a lot of people, but for me, I was really pushing it. And yeah, it scared me. All the things I need to do. There's all kinds of stuff that can go wrong. The wood can crack. Glue joints can separate. It can be a nightmare to fix. All of that. So you've got to get a humidifier for the guitar. Now, guitars have all these they're like little personal humidifiers. They'll fit in there, and you can use those that way. And I'm sure those work just fine. The people at the stores that I was talking to recommended just skip those and go straight to a regular room dehumidifier if you've got a space that you're using for your guitars, which we do. So anyway, all of those reasons, you know, the potential leprosy, and having the good guitars, the diseases,
skin dryness.
We wanted a humidifier. So my family dug into it and we bought one and put it in. And I've had a ton of great fun with this. I mean, as much fun as you can have with a humidifier.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of like humidifier envy, to be honest with you, because I've got a humidifier, but it is not like yours.
Well, I'm going to give you all the info you need. Now, if you're going to be jumping into getting a humidifier, you've got one, but maybe other people are thinking that, you know, I want to solve some of these problems and jump in. I've got a recommendation. I'm going to first give you some basic things to keep in mind. First off, you got to make sure that what you're buying is big enough for the room that you've got.
Yeah, that's crucial.
All of them will tell you how big a space they're covering. Of course, pretty basic. Make sure you do that. Consider how it's filled. This is another thing to think about. I had one that was bottom filled.
Yeah.
Nothing that's bottom filled is great. Not a big fan of that.
Off and fill it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was messy because it would always drip all the way back. The one I have now is top filled, so I just have to haul a little pitcher in there and pour it. I like that a lot better. Think about how well it breaks apart for cleaning, because you do have to clean these.
Right, or like change the filter. That's important.
Definitely look into that, and then read reviews. You know, there's a lot of reviews out there that will help you figure out what you need. Now, for me, I ended up buying a Govee, Govee, Govee Smart Wi-Fi Humidifier. And then I bought also a Govee Smart Hygrometer. Now, hygrometer is just something that's going to measure the temperature, and then it also measures primarily humidity, right? I did a fair amount of research, and these two for my space seemed like the best bet. The whole expense, putting both together, was about $70, so not bad.
Okay, not bad if you're buying two separate things like that.
Right. Now, it is for a smaller room. You know, the one that I bought will cover about 160 square foot.
Okay.
That was the room that I had. And I think the humidifier itself was $60. The hygrometer was another $10.
All right, not terrible.
Anyway, I got them because they can be paired. Now, it's very interesting, and it's something that's a little bit, you wouldn't expect it. I expected that when I buy one, I could set a smart one.
Right.
I could set a certain humidity, and it will just maintain that, like a furnace maintains. It turns out a lot of them don't do that.
Wow.
If they've got the hygrometer built into it, it will achieve a certain humidity.
Sure.
But sometimes you got to turn it on to do that. It will maybe automatically turn itself off, but you've got to automate. It's not the smartest. It's kind of smart, but not brilliant.
Right.
Now, when I bought these two, they pair together, and now I can do exactly what I wanted. I set a target humidity,
right,
and it will turn itself on and turn itself off.
And it just maintains that level that you want.
It maintains it, right within about a 2% up or down, plus or minus kind of a range.
I mean, that seems like what you want. If we talked about, that ideal humidity being around 43%, how do I know what I've got going on?
Right.
And how do I maintain that? I mean, this does it all for you.
Right. Now, like I said, a lot of them will tell you what it's at, because they've got built-in hygrometers, and it will sense where it's at. But it doesn't turn itself on and it doesn't turn itself off necessarily.
Built in too. I mean, does it give you a different or inaccurate reading because it's directly next to where the water is coming out of the machine?
That's the other thing I liked about this system is that I can put the hygrometer on the other side of the room.
Yeah.
So it's measuring the air over there,
right,
not at the machine itself where it's kicking out the moisture. It seems like I'm going to get a better reading. I've been going for about 3 weeks now with this. And yeah, for 3 weeks, that humidity level in the room has been rock steady at what I wanted it to be at.
That's
when
really
I started, I think the room humidity was around 17%.
Okay.
So yes, my guitars, hopefully they've survived.
Yeah.
But I think we're good to go now. I'll put links in the show notes for the model that I bought if you want to check that out. Again, you got to make sure you're getting the right size for your room, all of those things. Do your research, find what's right for you. But it's really worked out well. The bigger point overall is just if you're struggling with any of the things we talked about earlier.
Yeah, especially this time of year. I mean, I think everyone deals with some of those things to some extent.
Yeah, a humidifier might solve those problems. Check it out. All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, let's talk about moisturizing and conditioning our furniture. That's all next. Stick around. You're listening to a special Best Of episode of the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show, sponsored by Benjamin Moore. And before Hailey gets running with her topic, she's got a topic all planned.
Yes, it relates to a topic that we talked about last.
Right. Now, that topic from last time was something I brought to the table, so that part's good. But if you do have to go to the bathroom, now's the time.
Oh,
I'm joking. But before we get to that, I've got something I want to start with because I thought it was hilarious. I don't normally, laugh out loud when I'm watching a video or watching something, on TV.
It's funny. Do you laugh internally?
I laugh internally. I chuckle.
It's like a silent laugh. Silent
laughter, right. I don't like people to know what I'm thinking, so keep it all inside. But I stumbled on a news story and watching the video, and that's the problem with telling a story on the radio. The video was what really sold it and made it funny. But here's the scoop. Here's the premise. I love it. It's England, and maybe a lot of you have seen it. This was a viral thing from a few years back before I was really big on the internet, big on spending time on the internet. Still not big on the internet, right? No, never going to happen, and that's fine. Anyway, I stumble on the story of this poor guy who loses his job. And he's applying for jobs and he gets an interview lined up. This is all in England, if I didn't say that already. So he shows up at this big, it sounded like a hotel lobby kind of a thing, or this big area, a collection of people. That's where he's supposed to meet the people for this job interview. So he shows up all dressed up nice and ready to go. And as he's sitting there, this person comes up with a clipboard and says, "Are you ready?" And he says, "Well, yes."
Okay.
So they haul him into an area and they set him down at a little table and they put a microphone on him. And he's thinking, this is the strangest job interview I've ever been on. And all of a sudden, this lady sits down at a table next to him and she's all mic'd and ready to go. Somebody counts down 3, 2, 1 and points at the lady. And she says, "Well, good evening, everybody. We're talking." And yes, it's a news broadcast.
Gosh.
Yes, she goes on and on about some Apple thing with Beatles, Apple Corps, the Beatles company, and Apple, iTunes, having a little bit of a conflict. There's a court case going on. And she lays that all out and says, "What do you think?" And then gives the guy's name. And it's not the guy's name. When she says that and asks him, his face is priceless. It's just a quick double take. He's trying to stop her, but he realizes this is live TV. He's on air. So he just rolls with it. Answers the question.
Seriously?
Yes, keeps running through. He's got an IT background, so he kind of has some answers for it.
Oh, wow.
I will put a link in the show notes because that double take.
I don't know what I would have done.
I'd have just wept. I would have let people know what I was thinking, and it would have been fear and horror. I just can't imagine. I thought the guy handled it so well.
Rolled with it. I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah, you know what? The worst case or the worst part of the whole thing is he ends up going to his job interview later and doesn't get that either.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's a real letdown for him. But he did have a few minutes on the internet.
TV, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yes, it was TV, and now it's the internet, so it's still living on.
Double famous.
I didn't want to take too much time, but I saw that. Wrong place, wrong time. Thought it was hilarious. Hailey, what do you want to talk about? And it's tied to something that I talked about, which means it's very near and dear to my heart.
Yes.
Potentially.
It relates to your smart humidifier.
Okay.
Because you mentioned, all the terrible things that can happen because of dry air.
Right. Leprosy and remember everybody? My children.
Leper doctor.
Yeah, my children were so disappointed that I had done that.
But no, one of the things that you talked about was how the dry air can affect our furniture and actually cause the wood furniture to crack, because it's not getting enough water in the air. And that same thing can happen to our cutting boards, to leather furniture. Anytime the humidity drops in our spaces for that long winter month or 4
month? Yeah, okay. I was going to say.
It's like 4 months.
Yeah, it feels like it. So what do we do? I mean, the humidifier helps.
The humidifier helps, but we probably don't all have humidifiers. And even if we do have one, it's probably not humidifying all of the areas of our homes and keeping all of our furniture and cutting boards and everything beautiful. Okay. So you're actually supposed to maintain this stuff during winter months once a month. All right. So like oiling your cutting board, moisturizing any leather furniture once a month. I'm not doing any of that.
What am I oiling my cutting board with? Like vegetable oil type stuff?
I mean, I guess you could. There's like special cutting board oil. It's like a mineral oil, but it should say cutting board oil on the bottle. Mm-hmm. You can find it, in a lot of different places. Probably at the grocery store, you're going to see it.
I can't even find the normal things at the grocery store. I could spend 6 days looking for tapioca. I did that once. So I didn't stay 6 days.
You got to go to the pudding aisle, Dan.
No, I don't remember where. Maybe. But it wasn't in the box I was expecting to find. So if you're not a good finder, and you know who you are, bring somebody
or order
with
it online. There we go. Just use the internet.
Oil my cutting board. What other things do I need to do?
The other thing would be, moisturizing any wood furniture. So this would be wood furniture that's not necessarily like lacquered or painted. That's just sealed in. That's not going anywhere. Okay. But anything that's waxed wood or oiled wood, that needs to be maintained throughout those winter months.
So what am I oiling that with? Not just myself as I sweat while playing video games or something.
Like furniture polish or like furniture wax.
Okay, so maintain that. Keep up on it.
Exactly. Once a month is what you're supposed to be doing during those winter months. And then, again, leather furniture.
Yeah, that's the one I'm really interested in. I don't have any, but should I ever have leather furniture?
Well, and it's expensive, right?
That's why I don't have any.
Exactly. So if you do have it and you're not doing this, you've spent all of this money and potentially you're like cutting the life of it in half because you're not maintaining it.
So what do we do for the leather?
So for the leather, you can either buy a cleaner that also is a 2-in-1 and has the conditioner in it, kind of like a 2-in-1 shampoo, right?
Okay.
Or you can find the separate cleaner, get it all cleaned, and then you would condition it after the furniture has been fully cleaned.
How long does it have to sit before I can use it again?
Okay, let's say you clean, vacuum the furniture real quick. You're getting a cleaner on there. You do that whole process. You let it dry out fully. Then you're conditioning it with the leather furniture moisturizer.
Mm-hmm.
You want to let that sit after you've rubbed it all in and wiped off any excess after 30 minutes. Let that sit for like at least an hour before you're sitting on the furniture.
Okay.
So that you're not like staining your clothes.
All right. So I'm going to need to keep one chair unconditioned for resting in between while I wait for the other chair.
But even, if
ready.
you don't have leather furniture, like
Nope.
you do have a leather coat. I know I've seen one of those. You've probably got a leather bag. All of those things.
You think they're real leather? Do you think I sprung
your
for that?
leather coat is for sure real leather.
So even that's going to be wrecked if I don't rub oils on it, and sweat doesn't count.
Sweat does not count.
Okay.
No. I mean, it's got salt in it. It's drying it out too.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I am salty. I just finally learned what that meant. The kids always throw that term around.
Oh, really?
Dad, stop being so salty.
Oh, my gosh.
I don't know what that means. I figured it meant I was sweaty. We're going to put links in the show notes for all of these little products and all of the things that Hailey talked about.
I've got a whole process for you to look at, so you're doing it right. And it's just a really good thing to be doing right now.
Conditioning your furniture and other things. Mm-hmm. More work for you, brought to you by the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking about GARDZ Problem Surface Sealer. What is it? What does it do? We'll tell you in just a minute. Stay tuned. You're listening to a best of episode of the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show. I went through all of the archives and I selected the very best that we had to offer. To be honest, I went through and I picked the ones that I could fit into the time frame that I needed by mushing them all together. They're still good though. I hope you enjoy it. Well, Hailey, have you ever removed, let's say, the baseboard? Or maybe a backsplash in a kitchen, pull that off, or maybe even, I know it really happens often with a toilet paper roll holder. You pull that off the wall and you end up ripping the drywall paper. You pull that face paper off and you rip a big chunk off, and now you're down.
It takes the paint and everything with it.
Paint and everything with it. You're left with that brown paper, the backer paper kind of the drywall.
No, but I've got a ton of this to fix in my garage. We put up the drywall. I talked about that a while back.
Sure.
And Jordan, my husband, he's very sweet.
Okay, but there's a big but coming here.
He can be a little clumsy. And he knocked a couple of these pieces of drywall into things as he's moving them through the door. And he's gouged the drywall to the point where all of the paper's exposed, and I'm just looking at this thinking it's going to be a huge mess.
Right. So you've got the brown paper exposed, and, maybe people at home are thinking, well, you just mud over that and you're good to go. But you can't. Yeah. You're listening to the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show, and it's lucky for you that you are, if that's what you're thinking, because we're going to tell you what can go wrong with that and how to fix it. So first off, I guess let's talk about what could go wrong with that. Why can't you just mud over that brown paper, make it nice and smooth again,
and then
just go, right? Because the face paper's paper.
Right.
What's different? Well, the face paper will resist moisture better.
Exactly.
And that brown paper is going to suck up the water from your mud. If you put drywall compound over that, it can suck that water up, and you'll get rippling. It will actually bubble right up. Sometimes, it doesn't happen immediately,
Right.
But within 30 minutes or so, you could have a big mess going on.
Yeah, and it's not something that you can just sand over and then reapply more mud, because the same problem will just keep happening over and over and over
right.
again.
No, it's really frustrating when it happens when you're working with drywall, because you've got to let all of that stuff dry at that point.
Yeah.
Cut out all these bubbles.
Right.
Take care of it the right way, and then do all your mudding and all of that over again. So that's why you don't want to just throw mud over top of this brown drywall paper. Will it happen every single time? Probably not every single time.
No, because you've gotten lucky before.
I have gotten lucky because I didn't realize years back that I was even walking a razor's edge. I was clumsy, like you talked about with your husband, and I just went and mudded over it, and I got lucky. You may get lucky, and maybe in the past you've gotten lucky. And the thing is, you could do a whole room and you might have no problems except in a couple of areas.
Right,
it's not going to be necessarily wholesale
it's
failure.
Just like Russian roulette.
The big thing is, it is like Russian roulette. and it's one of those games you don't want to play.
No.
Because if you do lose, you lose big.
Exactly.
So let's talk about what you can do. And what you need to do is seal that brown paper before you go to any joint compound or drywall mud or anything like that.
Exactly.
And there are a number of options out there to seal it with. Some oil-based products, some white pigmented shellac.
Yeah, both stinky, both require, a fair amount of solvent to clean up that stuff, and it's not ideal. There's a specific product, though, that's called GARDZ.
GARDZ.
Yes, and it is essentially made to do exactly what we're talking about.
Among other things, GARDZ is a really interesting product. It's called a problem surface sealer. It's from Zinsser. And it does a lot of different things. It will, oh man, Hailey, what is the list? I'm trying to find their list of things because I don't want to miss anything.
It seals the residual paste left over after you've stripped wallpaper, right? You can strip that wallpaper off, and sometimes you'll still have like the glue left behind a little bit. You should still clean the glue, but this will go over that and make sure everything's locked down.
Right. The problem with that is glue, the wallpaper paste residue that's left on the wall is water activated. If you put a water-based product, a normal water-based paint over that or primer, it can reactivate that paste. You'll get texturing, and it's a problem. GARDZ will go over that and seal it in. It's a chalk binder. If you've got a chalky surface, you can put it over that and it will bind everything down. It does a lot of different things. But one of the things it will do really well is seal in this brown paper so that you can actually do your repair work over top of it without worrying about any of this bubbling.
Right. And it's kind of unique too. It's not pigmented like we think of normal primers as. It's almost clear. It's kind of milky in the can, and then it dries clear. It's still kind of smelly, but it is water-based, so at least the cleanup is easier.
Right. The cleanup's easy. It is a little stinky, like Hailey said. It's not going to be fumes in the same regard that the oil-based or the solvent-based products that we talked about are, but it's not terribly fun to work with in that regard. So what do you do with it? How does it work? How would you approach a situation? Let's just focus on a quick concept of a project, and let's talk about removing baseboard.
Yeah, because I think that's a really common issue with that.
It happens a lot, and here's the deal. A lot of the times when you paint your baseboard, over the years, you'll just paint it over and over again. You've got caulk sometimes that run along the edge of where the baseboard meets the wall. Paint film will stretch over that or bridge that as well. It will go from the trim to the wall to some extent. And then you go and you start peeling or getting that baseboard pulled apart from the wall, and then you just pull the big piece off. And sometimes if you don't run a razor
to separate them fully.
Right, to score that, to cut through that film, you can actually, that film will stay intact and it will rip straight up the wall. And you can pull big chunks of your drywall face paper right off with your trim. It's a real bugger when it happens.
Such a mess.
Nobody's happy. Yeah. Everybody weeps. But if that happens to you, we've got to fix. So let's say that's what you did. You just went through the room, ripped all that stuff. You've got all this face paper, or this face paper gone, brown paper exposed. It's kind of curling. It looks bad. What do you do? Well, you can't just paint over it because it's uneven.
Right,
you gotta fix that. You can't just mud over it to make it even because we told you why not. Right? So you've got to go ahead and get this GARDZ. So run out to RepcoLite or drive out, walk out, take a cab, an Uber, whatever you need to do to get there. Get GARDZ and then get home and you're ready to go. So you should probably get some sandpaper and go over very lightly.
Yes, very lightly, smooth all of that out. Like any of the little pieces of paper that are curling or running still, you want to get that under control. sand it so it's a nice smooth surface. You can use a putty knife and kind of knock down those edges a little bit. And if it's still running, it's just every time you hit it with the sandpaper, you're creating a new little
keeps
peel.
Curling up, right? Sometimes you'll be taking more face paper off by doing that.
You can score with a razor along, just make a little box, essentially. You're scoring a box around that paper where it's curled up, and then it won't curl past that line that you've made.
Right. That's a good fix if it just keeps unraveling as you go. So do that. Get all of that off. You do that light sanding to get it relatively smooth.
Yep.
You're not trying to get every little piece off, but just smooth it down.
Exactly.
And then go ahead and roll that area with the GARDZ. As we mentioned earlier, it's going to go on kind of milky. It's going to dry in about 3 hours to a really hard, clear finish that actually looks pretty cool. Bring out the color in that brown paper. You might think,
that's the goal.
Let's go with that. But you don't want to leave it like that. But it will, once it's dry, be a very hard surface. And now you can go back and get the rest of those little curled pieces off, because everything that's not completely smooth at that point is going to be really easy to knock off. So you could take a putty knife, a big joint knife for the drywall, and zip over it. That will take most of those edges off. Again, you could sand it.
Yeah, just do a light sand. And then you're ready to go over it with that mud or with the joint compound, just like you would originally want to do.
Yeah, so do as many coats as you need to with the drywall compound, sanding in between, feathering it out, all of that. When all of that is dry and you've finished that part of it and done your sanding and all of that, then you just go ahead and prime those areas and then put your finish paint over top. You could just hit those areas with one coat of your finish paint first, just to seal them up. Most finish paints are going to function as a primer. In that instance, we would certainly say that paint and primer all in one, which is going to be any of our high-end water-based products, work just fine on that. Get one coat on that patched area first to kind of get it equated and equal to the other areas.
You still want to seal it up.
And then go ahead and roll over top of everything else. Now, we know that you're probably not going to remember all of those steps. Our main goal here is just to let you know that if you've got that brown paper exposed, like Hailey does in her garage,
it's a problem, and there are steps to take. And now you know that you can't just jump right into this, and go nuts with your joint compound and mud right away. There are things to do before that are going to ensure it's a good finished product.
Right. And if you want to revisit the steps, or you've got a similar situation, or who knows what, it's an entirely different situation going on, just stop out at any RepcoLite store. Tell us what you're working on, what you're struggling with. Chances are, we've been doing this since 1946. There's a really good chance we've seen your problem. And if we haven't, and if you've got a new one,
you get like a medal or something.
That's going to be pretty exciting too. So just stop out at any store. Tell us what you're working on. We'll get you the right answers. And that'll do it. If you want to catch this episode again, you can find it online at RepcoLite.com. Just click the On the Radio tab right on the homepage. Or better yet, search out the RepcoLite Home Improvement Show wherever you get your podcasts. We're pretty much everywhere that you typically would look. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Find the show and subscribe, and then you'll never miss another episode. And coming up next year, I've got some big changes that I'm going to be making, and there's going to be a lot of bonus material that podcast subscribers are going to be able to grab. So if you want some of that good stuff, make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. All right, finally, we're at the end of December, but RepcoLite's big sale on Regal is still going on. Until December's officially a wrap, you can grab Regal Select Eggshell and Matte for 30% off the standard price. That's a savings of about $25 a gallon. So buy one for your next project, or buy a few 5-gallon pails if you've got bigger work coming up. At that price, you're really paying the same as you would for something that's not nearly as good. Regal's one of the best products out there, so stop out at any RepcoLite before the end of the month and save. All right, whatever you do today, make sure paint's a part of it. Have a great week and a Happy New Year, and I'll see you next week. I'm Dan Hansen. Thanks for listening.